Good afternoon. Just to clear the air, I want everyone in this room to know that Quincy and I had an agreement. He wouldn't practice law and I wouldn't practice music. As I've grown behind Quincy for so many years, people would always ask me, what musical instrument do you play? And I tell them with proficiency, I can play the hell out of AM, FM radio. Don't ask me which station, because there's too many. But I would like to thank the city of Bremerton, the Roxy and the Downtown Bremerton Association, as well as the current mayor and the former mayor, Mr. Crutcher, our MC, and Judge Flood, a dear friend of mine, for giving us the opportunity to be here today. And before I go any further, I would like to introduce my family, because my family is everything to me. They all know that they are number one in my life, and I live my life like that every single day, and I hope that they all know that. First, I'd like to introduce my wife, Leslie Jones. My sister, Teresa, and by the way, Teresa actually grew up in Bremerton with Quincy. But I also want you to know, I told her she was going to speak after me. In her words, I will kick your butt into Timbuktu if you bring me up on the stage. It's an accurate statement. Also with her today are two of her daughters, Tracy and Dana. Dana's son, Brett, and his wife, Chelsea, are here with their son, Dean. And a close friend of ours, what you call our sister from another mother from another planet, and that's Patty Savoy. Thank you, Patty. When I woke up this morning, we put on Quincy's music and just let it play for a couple hours, just to get into the mood of what today's celebration was all about. And I want to dispel a concept that someone had to share with my wife this weekend. And the person came up to Leslie and said, it's so bad, it's so sad, it's so bad that Quincy couldn't live a few more months to be here today for this groundbreaking ceremony. Let's kill that. And the reason we're going to kill that is because I know Quincy is watching what we're doing today. And if you know Quincy like we know Quincy, Quincy has already assembled what I would call the Heavenly Orchestra. And that Heavenly Orchestra, could you imagine a band if he had his pick up in heaven? Well, maybe he'd have to pick in heaven a couple other places. But if he had his pick, could you imagine Lionel Hampton, Billie Holiday, Whitney Houston, Luther Vandross, Ray Charles? I could keep on going of all the greats that he's worked with and people he's known for many years. Could you imagine the orchestra that he would put together? And I could see Quincy right now bobbing his head up and down, keeping that downbeat going with songs like Baby Come to Me, 100 Ways, Brand New Day from The Wiz. The Wiz is popular right now, but when Quincy did The Wiz, it was a whole different story, different challenge, different opportunity. We want to be starting something, and I know he would be playing as well his closing number, We're the World. And guess what today is, Bremerton? Bremerton is the world right now for Quincy Jones, so thank you. When Judge Flood called and said that they were going to have the groundbreaking ceremony, I was super happy about that, but I was elated when she told me it was going to be on Dr. King's birthday. And I said, you know, the amazing thing about this is what Dr. King fought for. He fought for equality. He fought discrimination. He fought for the opportunity primarily for African Americans to be beaten, to have a chance for jobs, for people to stop turning them down for job opportunities. Those are all the things that he fought for and died for. That's why we celebrate the birth and death and his living for what he gave each and every one of us. And the irony of the fact that we are here today on Dr. King's birthday is because of what Dr. King fought for was denied to our father. Denied to our father. Let me put in context. My father was a finished carpenter. Finished carpenter is the one that comes in and does all the high finishing work on amazing homes. And I hope that you all know who Ida Wells was. Ida B. Wells, great civil rights leader, a journalist. My father had worked on Ida B. Wells' home for 13 months as a finished carpenter. Now imagine having the opportunity to be a part of history, not in lights, but know that you were a part of her history. And after having worked in her home for 13 months, it was time for the next assignment. And the next assignment was this big, huge power plant that was a government contract that had been awarded. And they wanted the best people to go work on this project. So naturally, when they were picking the best people, my father, Quincy Delight Jones, was assigned to go work in this facility. He walked with his toolbox, proud of the fact that he had been recognized as an expert in his area of work, and showed up. Told him, go home. You can't work here. And when they called back to the people that had assigned my father to go work, they told him that Quincy Delight Jones was the best at what he did. I want you to pay close attention to the words that manager told. If you don't remember anything else today, I want you to remember these were the words that were shared with our father. With our father, no Negroes will be working alongside white workers. I'm gonna say that one more time. No Negroes will be working alongside our white workers. Not to minimize the gut punch, this horrific gut punch, his follow-up was, but he can come work as a laborer and clean up after the white workers. My father was a proud man. He wasn't arrogant, he was proud. And my father said, I'm not gonna clean up after anybody. I'm a quality carpenter, and I will come here, and I came here in a good spirit with qualifications to work. And they wouldn't let my dad work. I have hanging in my office, if you ever come there, hopefully to the office and not in the courtroom. There's some positive things happen in the courtroom too. You can win, for starters, and not go away. That's another win. But I have a picture of my father that was in one of the newspapers, and I have it in my office with my father's saw. It says Quincy D. Jones on it. And I keep that as a constant reminder for me, and guess who else has one of those saws in his home? Quincy Delight Jones. It's the exact same type of saw. And as children, our father told us always that this saw can be used to do quality work or it can be used to do shoddy work. And think of how that applied to Quincy. It applied to the same type of work I do. Quincy could take a music book and look what he could do and turn amazing quality, unbelievable music, lifetime of music. Someone else could take that same musical instrument and I don't even want to tell you what it would sound like. Probably sound like me trying to play something. Same thing with me. Take a law book, turn out some fantastic work, written work, or turn out shoddy work. But it was all a question of doing what's quality and doing your very best. Now, that article is a reminder for me every single day of the words that read at the caption. Expert carpenter Jim Crowed out of defense contract job. Expert carpenter. The newspaper recognized he was an expert carpenter. Jim Crowed out of defense contract job. Now, at the time, my father, they were raising 5 children in Chicago. 5 children in Chicago was tough. It was a tough environment. At that time, we were in the middle of a war. So you can imagine how the streets of Chicago, how tough they were. My father was proud. He went back to the union, and they started to organize because they were going to try and start some form of a protest to try and make some type of a change. That this was not right. This was not going to go down like this. Things resolved, and my father took a step back and realized this was an ongoing scenario. This was a repetition. It was going to continue to happen again and again. And so my father came home and told his family, we're going to pack up. There's some jobs in a place called, I think it's called Bremerton. I'm not even sure if my dad knew how to say Bremerton, but he knew there were jobs at the Naval Shipyard. So the first two sons, my brother Lloyd and Quincy, came out, Trailways bus, July 3rd, 1943, and they came to St. Clair Heights. To be followed was her mother and two sisters and another brother. They came in a Trailways bus a little bit later. It wasn't like you just get on the plane and pack everybody up and say, we're going to Disneyland. We're going to Bremerton. Why are you laughing? You come out of the streets of Chicago, Bremerton did look like Disneyland. But I want you to think about that. My father came to work at the shipyards, and it was a vile, racist, discriminatory act that was a change in everything in our life. And there's a book by Malcolm Gladwell that's been out for many years. It's called The Tipping Point. I'm not sure how many people have even read that book or even heard about that book. And The Tipping Point talks in terms of a single event can be a change in life and circumstances for one or for many. In this particular case, think about it. If this racist hadn't said no Negroes will work along white workers, my father could have stayed in Chicago. And Quincy would have never been exposed to Bremerton or the opportunity to develop as a fine and quality musician. So when they did get here, they moved up to St. Clair Heights. Now, the way it's been described to me, and the way in his own autobiography, in his own words, he said it was muddy, it was wet, there were bulldozers around, lots of trees, and not much else. It wasn't the bustle of Chicago. The closest activities were the Army base. Daddy's salary at the time, $55 a week, raising 5 kids. Now, you take $55 a week in 1943, you can advance it to today. That's certainly not even close to being a living wage. So you can imagine what conditions were like for Teresa, for Quincy, and everybody else in the family. So let me give you an introduction. As Quincy came in as an 11-year-old with his brothers from the streets of Chicago and how they were performing and what they were doing to survive. They brought their Chicago ways to Bremerton. Let me give you their first introduction. They were walking around doing what you do at 11 and 12 years old, and look, lo and behold, there was this great, big, beautiful swimming pool. So they took their little dusty butts, ran over and jumped in the swimming pool. They were doing backstrokes, forward strokes, side strokes, everything as the dust fell off. They were in your drinking water. All I can say is, as I drove in today and I passed the City of Bremerton Police Department, I said there was one Jones that wasn't a member of that club in the police department. Now, doing what 11 years old do is they wanted some adventure. They also wanted dessert. And they realized our family didn't have resources to always have desserts after you have a regular meal. It just wasn't the way it worked in our family because of financial circumstances. And so this little crew, they weren't a gang, they were just a little crew, group of little boys, said, let's go into the armory. Well, it's a nice way of saying, let's break into the armory. And that's exactly what they did for one purpose. They knew that they baked pies, they knew that they had lemon meringue pies that were fresh, and they had ice cream. And that was all you needed. And my brother Wayman, before he passed and he was up in age, Wayman could eat a whole quart of ice cream and not even blink. But what they did do is they went in, and they were killing the pie, killing the ice cream. So was Quincy. I'm not trying to immunize him. But what did he do? He decided to go into another room and push the door open aggressively. Basically, he broke into another room. My terminology, that's 2 felonies. But we'll talk about that. Statute of limitations expired. So when he went into the other room, he saw an upright piano. Now, he knew that an instrument like that was completely off grounds because in Chicago, there's a woman that lived above them, and she had a piano. She sang, she played, she's wonderful. But you keep your little raggedy fingers off my piano. And she wouldn't let any kids touch her piano. But Quincy had a natural curiosity, I think, even back then. He walked into that room, went up to the piano, and he poked it a couple times, and he put both hands on it, and he's told me, and he's told the world, and he's told our family that there's an energy like lightning that went through his entire body. He said he felt no more loneliness. He felt no poverty. He felt no shame. He felt no anger, no frustration. And for the first time, he felt this energy. And he said he knew right then and felt God coming into him saying, this is what you will do for the rest of your life. Now, I wish those were my words, but those are my brother's words that he shared with us countless times of how music came into his life. Look at his music. Lady of My Life, 100 Ways. A lot of the music that Quincy wrote about love was really about his love of music. That truly was the lady in his life. Now, Quincy kept breaking into this room so many times that Miss Akers finally agreed to say, let's unlock the door so he can get in here and not have to keep breaking equipment up. I guess he got to about 8 felonies, and she figured it was time for him to have access. Now, Quincy changed then. He completely changed all the way around. Now, my sister Teresa will tell you, no, she won't. She wants me to tell you that things changed so dramatically for Quincy, he stopped hanging out with the rest of the boys. Now, he'd run the streets and do everything they were doing, but he turned into his music. And she said he used to lay in his bed, pull the blanket over his head with the flashlight, and he had some form of music that he was studying and trying to learn music. 11 years old, his life changed when God came to him and said, this is what you will do the rest of your life. Yes, Bremerton, this is where it all started. Right here, home for music for Quincy Delight Jones. For the last 2 years plus, I'd go and spend time with my brother every month. And we talk about everything. And I can tell you that in 2022, Quincy received a birthday present, and it was from Bremerton. And it had his picture, which I'll give to Historical Society. This is Quincy's picture, and this is a picture of the upright piano, and this is Quincy smiling because he knew what you all were going to do in Bremerton, and I want you to know how happy this made him. So, City of Bremerton, you embrace a poor black family in your community. And you have embraced, just like Mr. Crutchfield when he came to this community. And you embrace countless others that have come to this community and countless others that will come to this community. And look at what magic that you've given the opportunity to happen. People know where Seattle Quincy grew up after he left Bremerton, but this is the center of the bullseye of music for Quincy Jones's life. I want you to know that. Now, as you go forward with the continued development of this Quincy Jones Square, you're going to run into challenges. Your leadership will change, just like the mayor changed. Your council may change, the leadership in terms of the organization and all the other entities to make this happen are going to change. And you may find yourself being frustrated. You may find yourself sometimes getting your eye off the prize, not knowing exactly, can we afford to do this? Can we do this? Can we make this happen? And you get frustrated. Well, I want to leave you with the mantra that our Father embedded in every one of the kids, all 8 of us, every single one of the kids. So I want you to remember this. Once a task is once begun, never leave the job until it's done. Be the labor great or small, or do it not at all. Do your very best. Give it 150%. That's what Quincy would expect. You name this facility after him, and that's what he wants you to do. And we know that that's exactly how it will go down. Now, for many years, I would go and spend time with Quincy, and the first night I would get there, the second night, we'd stay up all night talking. We talk about life, we talk about love, we talk about success, we talk about failure, we talk about challenges as we went through life. And then one morning, just before the sun came up, we started talking about how we start our days off. We started talking about our daily meditation. What did you think about to start your day? And how you were going to flow for the rest of the day. And so I gave mine and shared with Quincy. We talked about it. And then, being Quincy, Quincy laid down a message of his daily meditation that was mind-blowing. Absolutely mind-blowing. I'm going to share it with you. Now, you notice I haven't talked about Quincy's music career at all, or very little. And I haven't talked about Quincy's music. And you know the reason why? Because if you don't know that by now, you ain't never gonna know. And I'm confident I would do a poor job of trying to summarize everything that Quincy's accomplished in his life. You go look in his autobiography, I started to summarize that, and that was 20-something pages. I'm not gonna do that to you because that's another opportunity for you to get educated. Or go look at his documentary on, I believe it's Netflix. So there's a host of ways that you can learn more about Quincy Jones if you don't know. But what I do want to leave and hope that I have left with you are nuggets of information, nuggets about his life that you probably wouldn't know about or be aware of, and it might not be as detailed in his autobiography. So this early morning, it was in 2013, and when he shared it with me, I listened to it the first time, and I said, this is too important for it not to be recorded. So I said, let's do this again, and I'm going to write it down. And I put it in my own personal diary that I keep. And I'm going to share it with you. And this is the first time this has been read publicly, because the last time this was read publicly was at my brother's passing and the day of his funeral. And this is a program that we have. This is a picture of my brother. And it was entitled A Daily Morning Meditation. And these are his words. I have conscious divine intelligence. I have direct knowledge of truth. I individualize omniscience. I have perfect intuition. I have strong spiritual perception. I know and I am because God is guiding me. God is guiding me with a divine will to always help me continue to build the strongest character that I can always have, to be loved, to respect, to believe in and live with, and can always be there for my children and their families and my friends and their families. And that, the number ones in my life are my health, developing a creative ability, and whatever I'm qualified to do for the world, especially the children. Can you imagine? Now, he didn't have to hesitate or stumble when he shared those words. That's how Quincy Jones began every single day of his life. Now, I want everyone to know, I know it's no secret now that Quincy struggled the last year or so of his life, but Quincy was happy every single day. He was passed with his family around him. He passed knowing that he was loved. And if we could all have a life as rich. I'm not talking about dollar signs. I'm talking about a life as rich and as powerful and as committed to making a significant impact on the lives of others. Don't worry about Quincy Jones not being here today, because he's here and will always be here and lives through his music. Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you.